Tonight on Studio One, how to baby-proof your marriage.
Why impulsive behaviour could lead to food addiction.
And in the kitchen, we have a dish from the Noodle House.
It is Studio One.
Broadcasting from Dubai.
Welcome back to Studio. I don't know if I'm impulsive. Am I impulsive or not?
No, I don't think you're impulsive. I think I'm
Repulsive.
very impulsive. I don't think.
Do you think I'm repulsive?
No, I never said that.
That's nice, isn't it?
I never said that, Tom. Well, now, according to new research, people with impulsive, not repulsive, personalities are more likely to develop an addiction to food.
It's a compulsive pattern of eating that's similar to drug addiction. Here to tell us a little more about it, psychologist Dina Zalami. It all just sounds as a bit of an excuse to me here, Dina. Impulsive, addiction, eat more. Any truth in that?
Well, you know, impulsivity is really more complicated than I think we attribute it to be. And an impulsive behavior, as we know it, is really a behavior or a reaction that is performed carelessly or spontaneously without really thinking about the consequences. And so an impulsive person tends to opt for instant gratification. And so you may think of an impulsive buyer, or you may think of a food addict. And even though, you know, a lot of times we'll just say, oh, I couldn't resist that piece of cake, you know, I just had a craving and I'm just going for it. I mean, some people really do struggle with these cravings and struggle with the ability to mediate between their cravings or their urges.
Are you talking about a piece of cake, or are you talking about the whole cake?
Well, that's a good question. In the case of compulsive eating, obviously people who are food addicts and who overeat eat unusually large amounts of food, so it would be more than a piece of cake. But it may start as a piece of cake.
Okay. So clearly, since there's this well-established link between food addiction and impulsive behavior, but which one starts first? Is it because you're impulsive, or is it because you're addicted to food?
Well, impulse control, or poor impulse control, which is impulsivity, is one of the causes of food addiction. There are several causes, but this is a major one. And there are several reasons to explain this relationship between the two. One is a neurological reason, and the idea there is we all have a chemical in our brain called dopamine, and that chemical serves as a go-get-it neurotransmitter. So when we see something we like, a cake, or anything else, or when we anticipate a dress, yes, or when we anticipate a potential reward, that chemical tells us to go get it. Dopamine levels increase in our brain, and they tell us to go for it. But then what should happen is that another part of our brain that regulates impulse control should come in and say, wait a second, think about this. Do you really want to do it? How good is it in the long run, etc. People who are impulsive, for them, that part of the brain is not functioning as well. And that's why they are more likely to opt for instant gratification. Aside from this neurological reason, there are other psychological reasons to explain this link. One of them has to do with what they call emotional dysregulation. And that refers to ineffective ways of dealing with negative emotions. So we all feel angry at times, sad, anxious, etc. But how we deal with them is key. And when we don't have a good emotional regulation, we tend to suppress those emotions, fight them, or avoid them. And by doing that, we fuel our negative emotions, and we may feel overwhelmed, and then we just want to escape. And in the case of food addictions, binge eating is an escape mechanism.
So, I just want to go back to the dopamine.
That's what my head is full of. I just realized.
Dopamines, yeah.
Yes.
Can you harness them? Can you arrest them or not?
Well,
can you give me a pill to do that or not?
That's a good question, and I think
I'll
that
buy your
opens.
supply from you.
Well, you may have to talk to a psychiatrist there, but I think the focus, though, is really when we have a vulnerability, a neurological vulnerability. The focus is on managing that vulnerability through effective coping mechanisms and through fostering positive emotional well-being. So instead of focusing on that neurological vulnerability, to think about how are you in general in your life? how emotionally healthy are you? How do you deal with challenges? How do you deal with yourself? How hard on yourself are you? Are you self-critical or are you self-compassionate? So I would say the focus, instead of being a pill or looking for a pill, would be on improving your emotional and mental health.
I mean, if you're impulsive by nature, or if you have a weak willpower when it comes to, you know, a food in this case, can you take help from others? Like in my case, I always tell my parents at home and now my husband that, you know, don't keep chocolates in the fridge so that I don't have a craving when I see. So can you take help from people around you?
Yes, and there are various ways that people can help you. Now, if you have a serious food addiction, it would be best to abstain from those kinds of trigger foods, such as chocolate or other foods that are high in sweet or fat or, sugar or fat or salt, because those foods are more addictive. They make us feel better, they make us feel good, and so we go for them. So people can support you by not placing those foods in front of you, or they can support you just by trying to again, see how you're doing emotionally, because that emotional component is key in helping you regulate those impulses.
Well, we've talked a lot about this impulses and impulsive personality. We've sort of talked in a fairly negative way. Can impulsive personality be a good thing as well?
Oh, I doubt that.
I don't know, because I was talking to this Jordan Belfort guy last night, you know, the guy that was the original
Look
Wolf
at
of Wall Street.
you.
I'll just pick that name up off there. shall I?
Look at you,
Very much
name dropping.
But he seems to be an impulsive guy, you know, and was very successful. Okay, maybe not so now, but was very successful. Can it be?
And I think it really depends on the situation, and I think, yeah, some people, you know, may think of impulsive people as being more courageous, you know, going for it, you know, not hesitating and all of that. And so in some situations, they could use that, those characteristics to act boldly. But in general, struggling with impulse control can lead to a lot of other negative consequences.
I'm trying to help us out there.
But you know,
does it make us bad people?
No, not at all. And most of us struggle with it. It's just on different levels. And the key is to recognize it and then deal with it.
Dina, thank you so much for coming on the show and telling us more about your impulsive nature. Now I know the chemical that runs in my brain throughout. Well, if you'd like to find out more, log on to our Facebook fan page where you can find all the links, or get in touch with Dina, facebook.com/Studio One Live.
And what better thing to do after a chat like that than stuff our faces full of prawns?
After this.